Hello and welcome back to Red Dusk. Today we're playing as the Soviet Union again under Vladimir Putin, and where we left off last time with the one day left, and we're gonna vote against the Great Conspiracy. Something is not right. Things are too off for it to be considered a coincidence. There is dissonance, disobedience, and there are traitors amongst our ranks, and Putin knows this all too well. Whether it be the hardline Zuganovites, who are like parasites in his garden, or the mischievous LDPR members who plot behind his back, or even his own members in his faction. Even they contain dissenters. The only ones Putin can truly trust are now the truly commendable patriots of the motherland, the KGB, who not only serve the Union, but are the only cure to the disease killing the grand Soviet state. Some may call him mad for thinking there are this many traitors. Some may worry this will reflect the purges of Stalin to Putin. It doesn't matter what they say. All that matters is this so-called Great Conspiracy ends with utter destruction of the criminals who dare betray the motherland. All eyes on the left. Gennady Zyuganov, the leader of the hardliners, his whole life has been a staunch Marxist-Leninist, and while some of his views are unorthodox, he is a traitor nonetheless, him and thousands of bureaucrats who serve under him, like rats to a gutter. How could anyone within his party see Zyuganov, this Judas in a suit, was scheming in order to overthrow the upper Soviets and implemented his twisted vision of communists onto the Union? Putin had to deal with this one way or another, and with the KGB his side, he would smoke out these vermin in disguise and restore the gleaming ideals of communism. A couple arrests here, some wiretaps there, and even some poisonings ought to do it. It won't be easy due to their influence, but in the end, the hardliners within his faction, within the Soviets, will be a passing memory, a grand example of what happens when you wrong Putin and Mother Russia. The center must hold. The center Soviet faction on the surface is the most neutral faction within the Supreme Soviet, as they have been the most dominant faction within the upper Soviet system for quite some time, as opposed to the left and the right oppositions, but Putin knows better than to be so naive. He can see it, the mistrust, the corruption. It reeks like sewage, and Putin would never have to be the cleaner, with the KGB being his tools. This would be the most important party investigation, as in order for his government to function, the center faction must hold at all costs, and it will hold with its allegiance to Putin, that is. All eyes on the right. The Liberal Democratic Party of Russia is not liberal, not democratic, and hell, they aren't even a real party, but they managed to become powerful enough to the point that they are now considered a threat to Putin's interests. We have vanquished the scourge of fascism off the face of the planet before. Around the world, the USSR was considered the gallows to the fascists, where the French burned in Berlin and the Japanese were smashed in Harbin. Yet now the spirit of their evil lurks within our own people. Granted, this new nationalist cause is nowhere near as extreme, at least that's what Putin says, but they cannot be fully trusted. Much like the ghoulish Zyganovites, these schemers must face the hammer of justice. Luckily, this will not be as difficult as compared to cracking down on the hardliners due to their lower influence, so our friends in the KGB will have a much easier time in cleaning up not only these notorious nationalists. Emergency measures that appear our efforts at eliminating the traitors within our socialist state was not enough. Despite of the help from the KGB, the rats within have outmaneuvered us at almost every single turn, which now prompts us to use more extreme measures. For the sake of the Union and the motherland, Putin must act. But how? The simplest of these moves would be switching out the KGB as the source of suppression of rivals with the Soviet army instead. Surely they would put it into the for all. However, it doesn't go without its risk, as there are chaos in the streets, vicious fighting across the Union, and maybe even a civil war that could be caused. Obviously, this is the riskiest path. The other option is to nod to peace and work things out more diplomatically. We can utilize our influence within the government to solidify our power base and put an end to this continuous situation without bloodshed. Contact the SSSRs. It is time to begin extinguishing the fires within our Union, and to do that we must start from the top. Putin shall begin contacting the heads of the largest SSR within the Soviet Union, from Kiev, Tallinn to Tbilisi. Meetings, calls, and debates will be held with these local governors in order to reassure their fears as much as gaining their trust, which will help in solidifying our power base. This will be the first grand step in going down the power chain and eventually quelling these never-ending protests with an olive branch of peace, as well as a few promises here and there. Our man in Minsk. Out of all the USSRs in the Union, perhaps the most loyal so far has been Belarus, led by Alexander Lukashenko. It has been withstood all saboteurs, attempts from the liberals and many other nationalist elements in the quest to destroy the central authority of the SSSR. This has raised many questions within our leadership due to our process to more or less peacefully transition the Union into a new system. Lukashenko has proposed a plan for a unified state of Russia and Belarus, or as some call it, mini USSR. But on one hand, many within our government in Moscow have urged the proposal will have potential escalating tensions between the other SSSRs, as well as ground conflict between Belarusian opposition and the Moscow government. Union State Solution. This Union State Solution, to simplify it, will most likely be our last moves to expand our territory by the time Putin's plans for the USSR are completed, as this would have the Russian SSR and the Belarusian SSSR be in a union between themselves once the Soviet Union is dissolved. Belarus will not be fully integrated, however. They will be given a certain amount of autonomy, but overall they will still be very close bonded to our nation, and it seems Putin's good judgment influence, along with Lukashenko's favorability towards him, has paid off, and what looks now to be a closer bond between these socialist Slavic powers, well, this is good news in the long term. It will also act as foreshadowing for the end of our socialist state, and then coming closer and closer upon the horizon. Whether we're ready to dissolve or not, we will see in the future. At least we have our friends in Minsk struggling with us. Question of the government. While the Union slowly fades away into history, its legacy, however, won't. We are to inherit its entire political system of the world's biggest country, and this means we should take into consideration that we want the new Russia to be. Keeping a socialist model similar to the Chinese one might prove to be a risky strategy in terms of the economy, but it won't anger millions of people who have nothing but the words of Marx and Lenin for their entire lives. On the other hand, however, a direct transition to a capitalist oligarchic country will secure an influx of foreign capital into our country, but it also means we will turn our politics into an ever-rising nationalist element of the government. A new Russia. Russia as a whole will move away from the rotting Union, leaving it to define our own fate. The Union was great for sure, but it is rotting away currently, slowly becoming a shadow of itself. We hope that this decision won't trigger any harsh response, and hope it will be met with acceptance. A new dawn is waiting. With old clothes, even though we will eventually leave our old Union completely, we have not forgotten the patriotic elements of it during the Cold War and the Great Patriotic War of the Soviet people, gathered around Russia, our great state, thus pushing it to become a superpower. Besides, keeping the memory of the old nation would appease our older generations, and many still consider themselves communists, but first and foremost patriots. Arrest the agitators. While our union's heads agree that peaceful dissolution will be the only way forward, there are many that don't agree, or even those who agree with different visions from the ones that will be put upon the new country. This is where the KGB and the Ministry of Internal Security take the stage to ensure the Union's stability is kept for one last time. No matter what happens, we must not give in to the games of either Union's last delusional defenders or liberal movements willing to sell the country without a second thought. Plan Strela. Kill a snake, the best solution is to cut its head off. Just like that, the Union will be whipped clean of those who oppose Moscow's new way. These saboteurs, hardliners, liberals, nationalists are open to threat to everything we have pulled so far, and we shall not allow them to destroy it overnight. Everything must be done to make sure Russia's future is kept safe and possible. Operational Plan Strela was coined up. It includes operations of the Ministry of Internal Security, the KGB, the MVD, that will remove any and all that stand in the way of the Union's peaceful dissolution and Russia's future. Negotiations with the representatives. Of course, no one ever said this was going to be easy. Putting down the fires in the country on the brink of civil war is a tough job to do, and the relations between several SSSRs aren't making it any easier. Currently, we need a plan out to deal with both Armenia, Azerbaijan, as well as the Baltics. These conflicts will spread like snake venom through the Soviet states, thus destroying all our attempts at peaceful transition to a model statehood. A peaceful solution. Now that we've contact with the SSRs has been finally re-established, we can begin the main part of our plan, the Leningrad Conference. In order to peacefully transition the Union into a new state, we must make this coordinated with all the SSRs so as to avoid a possible full-blown civil war. While this is a highly dangerous move, considering the relations between several SSRs, mainly the Baltics and Armenia and Azerbaijan, it is by far the best solution that we have at the moment. The invitations have been set out. It is now time to wait and see how this will turn out. Goodbye forever.
Снова и снова память возвращает меня в те дни. Снова и снова я грущу о них. Прощай навеки, последняя любовь. Прощай навеки, и нет печальных слов. Июльский вечер, любимые глаза, и нашу встречу вернуть уже нельзя.
And today I am worried by our people's loss of the citizenship of a great country. The consequences may turn out to be hard for everyone. Mikhail Gorbachev. I would like to thank you for watching this video, and stay alright, bye.